everyone, Nicole Russo in Kentucky and Dan Illman in New York coming to you for this week's edition of the Oaks Countdown. And what a weekend it was. As we start, as always, by taking a look at the current points leaderboard toward a spot in the Oaks, you'll notice plenty of new names because last weekend we contested 3 points races, which did create some movement. Dona Veloce, who we've discussed quite a bit already, picking up actually her first graded stakes score, and Water White and She Dares the Devil, who have previously knocked heads in some stakes races, each breaking through at that level as the favorites faltered. Dona Veloce, the divisional star of the weekend, though, and Dan, we've talked a lot about her doing a lot in a short amount of time last year, running so well in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies in just her second career start, then picking up another Grade 1 placing, but I thought she continued to get a good education here in the Santa Ysabel, her 3-year-old debut. We'll watch her run into the first turn as she breaks from the rail, and she does bobble a little, not a lot, but just enough to put her behind some horses. You'll see her get a touch rank as a result, not a lot, but you'll see her head up, her mouth open a little, and a bit of that climbing action in the front. Flavian Pratt takes her before going on to win impressively. I thought it was an important race for her in terms of her continued education.
I think it's exactly what the connections wanted to see out of her. She was fresh, as you saw. She was climbing going into the first turn. But as we swing into the stretch, she's supposed to beat these horses with impunity. She does so, and from here, it's a measure of how far. That's really all it's about from here. I think they got exactly what they wanted out of the race. The plan was probably to be forwardly placed so that she would not be in behind horses, but plans changed after the break. She bobbled, as we all saw. She took some dirt in her face. She was unfazed by it all. And once she got to the outside, she was just too much for these horses. You mentioned that they did a lot with her in a short amount of time last year. That's the confidence that Callahan had in her. She knows that she is an extremely talented filly, and I think the time off over the winter did her a world of good. She is a very imposing physical specimen. She's got a beautiful pedigree. The second dam is Cash Run, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. The third dam is Grade 1 winner Shared Interest. She has now shown a rating gear, and yes, she's supposed to beat those horses. She had them over a barrel on paper, but I think that is a great race for which she could really build upon for her next start, likely in the Santa Anita Oaks.
Yeah, and Dona Veloce, the leader of the California filly ranks, but I think it'll be interesting to see what continues to happen on the road to the Oaks in that jurisdiction. The talented Venetian Harbor looks to be headed out of town for the Ashland at Keeneland, but Dona Veloce could have another local foe in Gamine. We'll see if the connections fast track that $1.8 million juvenile purchase off her impressive debut win last Saturday.
Baffert just keeps finding them. It's unbelievable. Bast, unfortunately, was retired. Gamine, the $1.8 million purchase, will take her off the bench and will debut going 6.5 furlongs, and she just destroyed the field. We saw Donna Veloce's win with an 88 Beyer speed figure. Gamine scored with an 87 Beyer speed figure, and knowing Baffert, Gamine is likely on the fast track to a major stakes race, and it could very well be in the Santa Anita Oaks.
Yeah. I think she's a very interesting prospect going forward. Obviously, as you mentioned, she debuted going short, but, into Mischief, he's the leading general sire. He's had classic placed runners the last 2 years, and he had the winners of 2 of the 3 Kentucky Derby points races over the weekend. So I do think that Gamine has the ability to go a bit longer.
And Gamine, well, I'm sorry, Nicole. And Gamine just showed the ability to raid on the lead in her race, her debut race, where, again, she was just completely dominant over that field. It'll be a very intriguing matchup. Both horses with similar running styles in the Santa Anita Oaks.
And meanwhile, elsewhere on the Oaks Trail last Saturday, also points races at Oaklawn and Aqueduct moving around the country. I thought She Dares the Devil turned in a very nice effort in the Honeybee at Oaklawn, which we'll watch the stretch run here. She had to wait for some running room, but then showed no hesitation about coming on between horses. She's a well-seasoned horse, and I think this filly from the first crop of Daredevil has really blossomed since moving to Brad Cox's barn. In 2 tries around 2 turns at Oaklawn, she was second in an allowance and then stepped up to win this.
Now, this was a very professional performance. I loved the way she sat in behind horses. She was very patient. She waited. A lot of horses would not have been as patient. They would have been bothered by being behind, and she just sliced her way through in between horses and got it done. The Oak Lawn Road to the Kentucky Oaks took a hit with the unfortunate passing of Taraz. She Dares the Devil won this race. The buyer came back light with an 80. I like her professionalism. But this is a very deep crop of 3-year-old fillies right now, and she's going to have to improve a little bit, in my opinion, before we can consider her perhaps one of the top 5 or 6 fillies in the country.
Very much so, and I think you could say the same about the other filly we'll take a look at as rounding out the trio of points races. Water White was up for her first stakes win in the Busher at Aqueduct after finishing second in the Basanda last month. She's the gray that we'll watch rally here, and I've been watching this filly who is from the first crop of Conveyance. I think he's kind of an interesting stallion prospect. He's by Indian Charlie out of a Holy Bull mare and has some great physical traits of both those lines. But while Water White stepped up on Saturday, Demoiselle winner Lake Avenue checked in 4th in her 3-year-old debut. And Dan, what to make of this group?
I think the New York group, the winner of this race was Harvey's Little Goyle, who dominated Water White last time out. We did not run in this race, and we saw Water White come back with a nice performance and flatter that filly. Lake Avenue's performance was baffling, to say the least. I know it was her first start of the year, and maybe she needed the race, but she's not supposed to run that poorly. The connections believe that she's come out of the race okay. It's likely that we'll see her in another prep race, whether back in New York or down in South Florida, and she has the pedigree and the ability to improve off of this race. But it is difficult to overcome a hiccup. We did see Serengeti Empress do so last year. She had a poor performance at the fairgrounds. She rebounded to win the Kentucky Oaks. But the jury is still out, I think, on Lake Avenue, because as of right now, her big win came in the Demoiselle last year, where she had all the best of it on an inside speed favoring track. Now, maybe the rail was not the place to be. At Aqueduct on Saturday, still that was a disappointing performance. As for Water White, it was a nice effort. It was a slow race, a 76 Beyer speed figure. Again, she has to take a step forward. I think the winner of the New York division right now is Harvey's Little Goyle. She benefited from the outcome on Saturday.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, most of these will have time for one more prep race now before the Oaks. There's really no more time for anyone to take backward steps as we're just over 7 weeks out. Looking ahead on the road to the Oaks, it'll be a quiet weekend coming up with just the Bourbonnette Oaks at Turfway. It only awards 20 points to the winner as one of the preps contested on a synthetic surface. But then things really start kicking into high gear as 2 preps the following weekend at Fairgrounds and at Sunland. Each track hosts their kind of final Oaks prep. The Fairgrounds Oaks, where we expect to see Finite, is the first prep offering 100 points to the winner, and some hefty prizes up for grabs for the other top finishers as well. We'll be back here next week and every Wednesday these final couple of weeks leading up to the Oaks to bring you all the latest on the road to the Kentucky Oaks as the countdown continues.